topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where for the last 16 years, actually next month it's going to be 17 years, that we have been bringing you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. When you've been doing a show as long as I have, nothing surprises you. This next expert has just shocked me. That's the best way. This show has grown so much in such a short time. This is on the first Monday at 9:25 Eastern Time. We do our national show with the law firm of Lance Drury. And I gotta tell you, I'm always worried with the new show, if we're going to have enough questions from you. I never have to worry with this show. We have so many questions, and listen, I wish we could get to all of them. And what we do is if we don't get to all of them, we save them for the next. But I just want to tell you how much I appreciate, first of all, our expert, attorney Lance Drury, but I want to tell you how much we appreciate people taking the time to write in to a show like this. And I want to just welcome. This has been such a great travel we've had with the law firm of Lance Drury. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, Steve. Hope you had a great Easter.
Hey, same to you. I got to tell you, I was telling Lance before the show, we get all kind of letters. Sometimes it takes me hours to go through the emails, but 16 years, you develop a lot of listeners. But once in a while, I really like to read some of the letters. And this is one that they actually asked me if I would read it on air. Lance, you have no idea what this letter is. It's not long, but it's so important. It's from Michael. He didn't tell us what city he was from. He said, I hope you read my email on the air. I learned there are so many scam companies out there that make so many false information and claims when you contact them. I'm one of those people. I want people to know the Lance Drury Law Firm is a 10-star service. They helped me file 6 years of unfiled taxes, so I'm fully up to date. I was looking at a large debt of $37,000. They helped bring it down to under $5,000. Their staff was very professional, and they kept me updated throughout the entire process. I highly recommend them, as my $37,000 was my entire savings. I appreciate them so much. What a letter, Lance.
Yeah, that's just fantastic, Steve. That's why we do this. I've always been on the side of the little guy against the government. I tell people I'm the guy who saves Fay Ray from the clutches of King Kong. I was a public defender in the old days. Now I'm doing about the same thing. It's like talking to the cops. You don't want to talk to the IRS if you have a problem. But, to hear that on a Monday morning to start the week, that is just great. And I'm certainly going to tell all my administrative staff what Michael said.
Exactly. And, listen, we get letters from people who said, hey, I've never written anything or called in with anything ever before. And One guy said, I listened to so many podcasts, but this is really nice, Lance. He said, I listened to so many podcasts throughout the day. I love podcasts. And he said, but your show you do with Attorney Drury is one of my favorites. I got to tell you, that guy someday, we hope he doesn't have a problem, but if a friend or a family member has a problem, that he'll recommend them to you.
Yeah, and we're here to serve people. We have almost 1,000 clients now at any one time, Steve, and I hope the day comes when we get to 2,000 or 3,000 clients at any one time. I'm only 72 and a half, Steve. I got plenty of time to grow the business yet.
That's amazing, Lance. I got to tell you, most people, because you and I are about the same age, and most people are winding it down. You're revving it up.
Well, it keeps me going. It gives me a reason to get out of bed at 5 o'clock or before in the morning. It's, I have my purpose. I have goals that I still want to have. If I quit working, I think I might be dead in 6 months because I would lose my purpose. I don't want to sit around and eat bonbons and watch TV all day long, Steve. So that's why I want to keep going. I want to do it for my employees. They've all been super. They're a lot younger, so I want to keep it open for them as well and for our clients, because there's 26 million delinquent taxpayers right now in the United States, maybe more, and they estimate by 2032 there's going to be 35 million delinquent taxpayers. So there's a lot of people out there that need our help, and we can certainly help people out.
Lance, I think the worst thing besides death that anybody can go through is having the IRS on their tail. I mean, talk about sleepless nights. What you do, what your firm does, is you take that burden away from them. And I think it's so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last thing we want, and it's in our engagement letters, they are not to talk directly to the IRS. That's what they hired us for, because whatever they say to the IRS will hold against them. They can't do that with us. And so, and they take advantage of lay people. And I know that because people think they can do it on their own. They call up the IRS, they get set up in a payment plan. Then they call me, and the first words out of their mouth are, I can't afford the monthly payment. And I go, well, then why did you agree to do it? And they go, well, this is what they told me I had to pay. And that's not true. When you call them up yourself, they're going to make you pay every last dollar. And this is all based on your ability to pay it back. 85 to 90% of our clients never pay back the full amount, but they're never going to tell a layperson that. And so that's why you do not want to call the IRS yourself. And here's the other problem. The IRS is so understaffed, they don't get the proper training. You call the automated collection system, and some of those people don't know what they're talking about, but a layperson's not going to know that. We spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more just keeping up on that, so we know when we call them up whether or not what they're telling us is true or not. And we have access into their system so we can verify all that. So, that's why you need a professional in your corner. Don't try to do this on your own.
Lance, I was so surprised. People have been paying taxes all their life. But when it comes to getting behind on your taxes, not filing your taxes, I was surprised how uneducated most people are when it comes to dealing with the IRS.
Absolutely. A lot of people think it's easy. They can do it on their own. But like I said, we spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more just keeping up on this. And so, they're constantly changing regulations. They're constantly changing procedures. So you really do have to keep up on this. Let me just give you an example. The only thing as bad as the IRS is the Postal Service. So, anything that's important, we have to send in by certified mail because the IRS loses stuff. They're a bureaucracy. But if we don't have proof that they accepted it, you know who's going to win that argument. And secondly, if we send it by postal mail, the postal service loses stuff. So we got to track all the important stuff. It's very expensive, but we have to do it to do the best possible job for our clientele.
You know, I had someone ask me about your rates, but I want people to understand everybody's situation is different. I mean, you can't have a menu of rates. It's just going to depend on what you have to have done. Is that correct, Lance?
Well, for the most part, we do have standard rates, but it's all based on what you owe. But it's also based on what we're going to do for you as well.
Right.
So, you know, some situations are different, you know, if we don't have to go through financials and all that, because that's where we spend the most time. That's where the taxpayer is going to spend the most time on. And that's why you need us, because the taxpayers do not fill them out right the first time. We may go through that 3, 4, 5 times because we got to get the numbers right, because you're submitting them under penalties of perjury. And guess what, Steve? You give us bad numbers, we're going to give you bad advice.
Right, exactly.
So it's not just the financial statements, bank statements, credit card statements, debit card statements. If you want a deal from Uncle Sam, you got to prove to Uncle Sam that you don't have the means to pay it back. He's not going to take our word for it. So we have to have documentation to support our clients' expenses for different categories of expenses.
Lance, one of the biggest things I've learned from you is you don't want to handle this yourself. I mean, it makes so much sense why you don't want to handle this yourself. And I went to the internet the other day. I was looking up our shows on there, and there are so many shows on the internet about do it yourself. Folks, I got to tell you, that is the worst information that anybody could give you, to do this yourself. Right, Lance?
That's exactly right. And I tell everybody, we don't compete on the basis of cost. We're not cheap, but we get rave reviews. Our Google reviews in St. Louis are 4.7 out of 5. In Nashville, Tennessee, they're 4.9 out of 5. You know, if you had to have heart surgery, you wouldn't shop around for the cheapest surgeon. You would want the best person in your corner. Well, this is the same thing. This is the exact same thing. And just like that guy said, he went from $37,000 to under $5,000. We do that a lot. I had a guy once that probably owed $300,000, and we ran out the clock on all but about $30,000. Then we got him into currently non-collectible. He didn't pay a dime. So that's the type of things that we can do. And, you know, this is one of the mistakes people make, is they don't recognize that the IRS does not have forever to collect the tax. And so when we strategize, we go in and we see, when is the clock going to run out on collections? And that's why sometimes, instead of filing a collection due process hearing request, we file an equivalency hearing request to stop a levy, because the clock stops if you file a collection due process hearing request. But the clock on collections doesn't stop if you file an equivalency hearing request. And so, you know, generally we get under 2 years, year and a half, something like that. We just try to run off the clock. And most of the time we're successful, because the IRS doesn't have enough people, and they're a bureaucracy. Things fall through the cracks. There's not always rhyme nor reason to what they do. So we can probably run out the clock 10, 15% of the time. It's not a huge margin, but that option's available, particularly for debt that's old. Your newer debt, you're not going to be able to run out the clock on.
And, you know, Lance, who would know that? You know, you've got so many tools that you can use, but most lay people would not even know those tools.
Well, and then the other thing is, you know, we can give advice to people potentially to get them a better deal. I had a woman once, she owed over $40,000. We went through the financials 3, 4, 5 times, and it showed she could pay $600 a month. There was 4 years left on the collection statute, so she was going to pay back about $30,000. So she was going to pay back about 75% of that debt. So I called her up one day. I said, you need to go out and buy a new car. She goes, they're going to let me buy a new car when I owe them all this money? I said, you got a car with 200,000 miles. A reliable vehicle is a necessary expense in determining your ability to pay this back. That car is going to break down. You're going to pay the repair bill. You're not going to have any money left over to pay Uncle Sam. They're going to default you on the agreement. You've wasted all your money in hiring me. So she went out. She got a $500 a month car payment, reliable vehicle, paid $100 a month for 4 years. So she paid less than $5,000 on a $40,000 plus debt. So that's the types of things that we can talk about with people to get them a better deal.
Let me get to some of these letters. We've got so many of them. Craig in Miami, if I'm having IRS problems, is it better to hire a CPA or a firm like yours?
Well, I have to tell you, and I'm not bad-mouthing the CPAs because I'm sure there are some that are knowledgeable. But here's the problem with hiring a CPA. They just dabble in IRS stuff because 90% of what they do is tax preparation. And every one of my attorneys, I have an attorney in Orlando, I have a couple in San Antonio, 2 in Nashville, we have 2 here in Missouri. They've all seen accountants give horrendous advice to their clients. And here's the big one, Steve. This is another rule most people are not going to know about. In order to be compliant with the IRS, and you have to be compliant in order to negotiate a settlement, they won't even talk to you. You've got to have the last 6 years' tax returns prepared and filed. Well, guess what? People go 10, 15 years without filing the returns. They're self-employed. They never made estimated tax payments, so you know they're going to owe. And the accountants will have them file all of those returns. They're putting tens of thousands of dollars on the books for each year for those clients. So now it's 20 through 25, or it will be just in a few days. So the IRS is not going to go back at this late hour and file a substitute return for you for 17, 18, 19. They just don't have the manpower. So if the IRS hasn't filed and you haven't filed for those older years, guess what, Steve? There's no liability on the books. So when those accountants file those returns, they're just basically screwing their clients. So that's why I tell people, hire an attorney that does this every single day, because attorneys are versed in argumentation. They're versed in negotiation. I think they're more client-oriented. They zealously represent their clients. I think they work longer, although not a lot of the clients work pretty hard this time of year. In fact, mine works, till midnight every night, and they work weekends because of, they got that much work during tax season. So, but to handle IRS problems, I would not recommend that you go to an accountant.
Sid in Anchorage, Alaska. Can the IRS come out to my place of business to question me?
Well, they can if there's a revenue officer in place, because what's going to happen is they're going to want to view your business and look at all your assets and everything else about the way the business is conducted. And they're going to want to ask you questions. So when that happens, we tell the client, skedaddle. You're not going to be present for when the officer gets here. We're going to come instead and we're going to talk to them. And we just had one down in Texas. And my guys rented a car to go down there for a few days. And it was like hobby losses. The guy owned a ranch is showing losses for years. And the liability was huge. Well, we got it knocked down at least. It was more than 6 figures. I don't know if it was over 150,000 or whatever. But the results of the audit changed drastically after we got involved in the audit. And the guy had another attorney. And the guy didn't do anything. And the guy came to me a year ago, September. I talked to him for 45 minutes, explained to him what a collection due process hearing is, explained to him what a notice of deficiency was. He said, I never knew any of this. I said, go back to this guy. I've heard the name. I said, I've never heard anything bad about him, but if anything else comes up and he's not doing his job, in your opinion, or communicating with you, give us a call. A year later, he came back, and he is very happy with the results that he's getting from our firm.
Randy is, speaking of Texas, Randy in Dallas, I was told I owed the IRS $2,500. I paid it rather than fight, even though I believe I was right. Would your firm fight to get my money back?
Well, obviously, it wouldn't be worth your while to hire us for $2,500. We tell everybody if your liability is under $10,000, that it's not worth your while to hire us. And hopefully the day will come when we won't be doing any cases under $25,000. I hate to do that because we can't charge as much, because then it's a bigger portion of what the total debt is. But the problem is some of those cases turn into more time than somebody that owes $50,000, $60,000. And we end up losing money on some of those cases. But right now we're still handling cases that are over $10,000. But, it just wouldn't be worth our while to do anything under that.
Well, I got to tell you, I just want to make sure. Your show goes by so fast, Lance. Tell people how they can reach you.
Go to lancedrurylaw.com. And, down at the bottom, Steve, I noticed that it's not right. It's Genevieve is St. Genevieve. It's STE period, then Genevieve. And I also noticed that Houston's phone number isn't down there. So we need to get that corrected. But go to lancedrurylaw.com. You'll see the testimonials. You'll see the speeches I've made across the country, the award I won from the American Society of Tax Problem Solvers, the books I've co-authored, and there's a lot of great information there.
Lance is actually with us. We do a San Antonio, Texas show, and we do a Missouri, Tennessee show this month. Lance, we will get that taken care of. Thank you so much. I hope you had a wonderful Easter, and we'll see you pretty soon.
That sounds great, Steve. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's attorney Lance Drury. Folks, if you're having an IRS problem, please give them a call. Don't try to handle this yourself. Hey, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back in with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.